Let me be real with you for a second. Waking up every morning ready to conquer the day isn't as easy as motivational speakers make it sound. Sometimes the alarm feels like the enemy, the warmth of the bed seems impossible to leave, and the thought of everything waiting for you out there feels heavy. I've been there, more times than I'd like to admit, and honestly, I've had mornings when I wanted to just hit snooze on life altogether. But let me tell you something that's changed the game for me. The mornings when I felt the most resistance, the days I just didn't want to start, those were the mornings that shaped me. Because motivation doesn't show up and knock on your door, it's something you have to create. And that's where the wisdom of the Stoics comes in. Let's take a moment to think about what it means to wake up with purpose. For a long time, I thought motivation was this magical feeling that successful people just had. I believed they woke up every day with a fire in their belly, ready to tackle the world. Turns out, that's not how it works. Motivation isn't about feelings, it's about mindset. It's about training yourself to see mornings not as something to survive, but as an opportunity to build something meaningful. Here's what I've learned through trial and error. Motivation starts with how you talk to yourself in those first moments of the day. When you wake up, what's your first thought? Is it dread? A list of all the things you're not looking forward to? Or is it something intentional, something powerful like, what's one thing I can do today that aligns with the person I want to become? For me, those first few thoughts in the morning are like planting seeds. If I plant doubt, stress, or negativity, my day feels like I'm dragging a heavy weight. But if I start with clarity, with purpose, and with a focus on the things that matter, the day feels lighter, even when it's packed with challenges. The thing is, this isn't about being perfect. I still have days when I stumble, but the Stoics taught me that progress is more important than perfection. It's not about having flawless mornings. It's about showing up, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And when you start to see those small wins stacking up, something incredible happens. You realize you're not at the mercy of your mood or circumstances anymore. You're in control. This isn't just theory for me, it's something I live every single day. There's a quiet strength in starting your mornings with intention, a strength that builds over time. And trust me, it's worth it. Because when you master your mornings, you start to master your life. Every great day starts with a great morning, and every great morning starts with a choice. What choice will you make tomorrow? Here's the thing I've come to realize. How you start your day sets the tone for everything else. If the first moments after you open your eyes are spent aimlessly scrolling, dreading responsibilities, or rushing through the motions, it's almost guaranteed your day will feel chaotic and uninspired. But when you begin with intention, clarity, and purpose, it's like lighting a fire that fuels everything you do. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. Now, I know some people hear his name and think of a Stoic statue, someone unreachable, someone who couldn't possibly relate to our modern struggles. But let me tell you something about Marcus. He was a man who faced relentless challenges, wars, political betrayals, personal losses, and yet he carried himself with unshakable purpose. How? Because he made mornings sacred. And this practice is just as relevant for us today as it was in his time. Marcus Aurelius had a habit of starting his mornings by grounding himself in his values. He would reflect on what mattered most, his duties, his character, and the fleeting nature of life itself. He didn't wait for the day to dictate how he should feel. He decided, first thing in the morning, how he wanted to show up in the world. This approach is profound because it reminds us that every morning is a reset, a chance to choose how we live. It's a lesson I've taken to heart, and it's one that has transformed how I view mornings entirely. When I began incorporating these reflections into my own mornings, I noticed something almost immediately. I stopped feeling overwhelmed before the day even began. It was like having a roadmap for my thoughts, a guiding principle that cut through the noise. And let me be clear, this isn't about perfection or pretending life is easy. It's about creating an anchor, a set of thoughts and intentions that keep you steady, no matter what chaos the day might bring. One thing Marcus reflected on often was his duty to others. He didn't just wake up thinking about himself. He reminded himself of the role he played in the lives of those around him, his family, his people, even strangers he'd never meet. There's something powerful about this. When you start your day thinking about how you can contribute rather than what you can take, it changes everything. It pulls you out of your own head and gives your actions a deeper meaning. I started doing this in small ways. Before diving into work or tackling my to-do list, I would take a moment to ask myself, what's one thing I can do today to make someone else's day better? It could be as simple as sending a thoughtful message, lending a hand, or just being present in a conversation. The point is, beginning with purpose makes your day about more than just ticking off tasks. It becomes about living with intention. Another thing Marcus emphasized was the importance of aligning your actions with your values. This is where so many of us get stuck. It's easy to say you value honesty, courage, or kindness, but how often do your actions actually reflect those values? Marcus didn't leave this to chance. Each morning, he reminded himself of the type of person he wanted to be. He wasn't aiming for perfection. He knew he would stumble. But by setting his intentions early, he gave himself a compass to follow throughout the day. I can't overstate how much this practice has helped me. I started asking myself questions like, am I living in a way that reflects what I truly care about? Am I acting in alignment with the person I want to become? These questions are tough, but they're necessary. They force you to confront where you might be falling short, and they give you a chance to course correct before the day even begins. One of the most striking things about Marcus's reflections is how he prepared himself for the challenges of the day. He didn't sugarcoat life. He acknowledged that he would encounter difficult people, frustrating situations, and unexpected obstacles. But instead of letting this discourage him, he used it as motivation. He saw these challenges as opportunities to practice patience, resilience, and wisdom. It's such a powerful mindset shift to see the day's difficulties not as burdens, but as tools for growth. I've found this incredibly helpful in my own life. On days when I know I'm walking into a tough situation, whether it's a challenging meeting or a personal conflict, I take a moment to ground myself. I remind myself, this is an opportunity to show strength, to stay calm, and to rise above. And you know what? It works. It doesn't make the challenge disappear, but it changes how I approach it. And that makes all the difference. Another key lesson from Marcus's morning reflections is the reminder of life's fleeting nature. This might sound heavy, but it's actually one of the most liberating practices I've ever adopted. When you start your day with the awareness that life is short, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You become more intentional with how you spend your energy, your attention, and your time. I started incorporating this into my mornings by asking myself, if today were my last day, what would I want to focus on? This isn't about being morbid, it's about clarity. It's about cutting through the noise and focusing on what truly matters. And the truth is, we don't have endless tomorrows. Starting the day with this perspective brings a sense of urgency, but also gratitude. It's a reminder that every morning is a gift. The beauty of these reflections is their simplicity. You don't need an elaborate routine or hours of meditation. All it takes is a few minutes of quiet, focused thought, and the impact is profound. You step into your day not as a victim of circumstances, but as the architect of your own experience. I can't tell you how much this practice has changed my life. It's not about chasing some ideal version of yourself or striving for perfection. It's about showing up every single day with intention. It's about choosing to live in alignment with your values, to contribute to the world around you, and to see challenges as opportunities for growth. And it all starts with how you begin your morning. So, if you're tired of feeling lost or unmotivated when you wake up, try this. Take a few minutes tomorrow morning to reflect. Think about your purpose, your values, and the type of person you want to be. Start small, but start. Because how you begin your day shapes everything that follows, and the power to change it is entirely in your hands. It's one thing to wake up with purpose, but let's address what often follows. The overwhelming temptation to stay in your comfort zone. You know what I'm talking about. The pull of the warm bed, the allure of scrolling through your phone just a little longer, the endless ways we convince ourselves that later is a better time to start. I've been there, and let me tell you, this battle with comfort is one of the most challenging and rewarding fights you'll ever face. This isn't just about laziness. It's about how deeply ingrained our desire for ease can be. But here's the truth the Stoics taught me. Comfort is a trap. The more you indulge it, the more it takes from you. If you're serious about living a life that matters, you have to confront this head-on. The comfort trap isn't always obvious. It sneaks in disguised as self-care or harmless indulgence. I deserve a break, you tell yourself, even though you know deep down it's just procrastination wearing a mask. The Stoics understood this all too well. They believed in purposeful action, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Comfort might feel good in the moment, but it robs you of the satisfaction that comes from progress. For me, the shift happened when I stopped treating comfort like a reward and started treating it like an obstacle. I realized that every time I chose comfort over action, I was delaying my growth. That hit me hard. The Stoics teach us that we are not defined by how we feel in a moment, but by what we choose to do despite those feelings. It's not about denying yourself rest or joy. It's about knowing when comfort is helping you and when it's holding you back. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is to create momentum as quickly as possible. The hardest part of any task isn't the doing, it's the starting. The Stoics knew that action fuels motivation, not the other way around. Waiting to feel ready is a trap, and it's one I fell into for years. I used to wait for some magical burst of energy or inspiration to get going. But here's what I've found, that energy comes after you start, not before. The key is to take the smallest first step and let that step carry you forward. There's a technique I use called the 5-second rule. The moment I feel hesitation creeping in, whether it's getting out of bed, starting a workout, or tackling a challenging task, I count down from 5 and move. No thinking, no debating, no second guessing. Just action. This simple trick has saved me from countless hours of procrastination. The Stoics would call this discipline, and it's a skill anyone can cultivate. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. Another critical element in overcoming the comfort trap is redefining how you view discomfort. Most of us are wired to avoid it at all costs, but the Stoics saw it differently. To them, discomfort was a teacher. It was the proving ground for strength, resilience, and character. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. I started reframing discomfort as an opportunity rather than a threat. For example, when I feel resistance toward doing something difficult, I tell myself, this is where I grow. This is where I get stronger. It's not easy, but it's incredibly effective. One thing I've noticed is that our environment plays a huge role in feeding or fighting the comfort trap. If your surroundings are filled with distractions or easy escapes, it's going to be that much harder to stay disciplined. I started taking small steps to shape my environment for success. I'd set my workout clothes out the night before, so there was no excuse in the morning. I'd put my phone in another room when I needed to focus. These small changes might seem insignificant, but they add up in a big way. It's also important to understand the stories we tell ourselves about comfort. For years, I believed I needed to feel comfortable to be productive. I told myself that I worked better when I was relaxed, that I deserved to ease into my tasks. But those were just excuses. The Stoics remind us that comfort is fleeting, and true fulfillment comes from meaningful effort. When I started challenging those beliefs, everything changed. I realized that the best moments of my life, the moments I was most proud of, came after I pushed through discomfort, not when I avoided it. One of the most practical tools I've adopted is the concept of intentional discomfort. The Stoics practiced this regularly, whether it was through physical challenges, fasting, or going without luxuries. They believed that by choosing discomfort in small, controlled ways, you build the mental toughness to face bigger challenges when they arise. I started small, taking cold showers, fasting for a few hours longer than usual, or saying no to temptations I would normally indulge in. These practices might seem minor, but they create a powerful ripple effect. Each time you choose discomfort intentionally, you prove to yourself that you're stronger than your impulses. Another powerful technique is to focus on the long-term benefits rather than the short-term gratification. When you're tempted to choose comfort, ask yourself, what will this decision look like in a week, in a month, in a year? This perspective shift is a game changer. It pulls you out of the immediate moment and forces you to think about what truly matters. For me, this has been a huge motivator. Every time I choose action over comfort, I remind myself that I'm investing in my future self. And trust me, your future self will thank you. I've learned the importance of self-compassion in this process. Overcoming the comfort trap isn't about being perfect or never slipping up. It's about consistency and progress. There will be days when comfort wins. That's okay. What matters is how quickly you get back on track. The Stoics teach us to focus on what's within our control, and that includes how we respond to our own setbacks. Don't beat yourself up. Acknowledge the slip, learn from it, and move forward. This journey isn't easy, but it's worth it. When you stop letting comfort dictate your actions, you unlock a version of yourself you didn't know existed. You become stronger, more focused, and more resilient. And most importantly, you start to live a life that's aligned with your values and goals. Comfort might be tempting, but it can never compare to the satisfaction of purposeful action. The choice is yours. What will you choose? The more I wrestled with comfort, the clearer it became. Comfort isn't the real problem. It's the lack of discipline that allows comfort to win. I realized that without discipline, even the best intentions crumble under the weight of excuses. Discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you actually achieve. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, lived a life that was anything but easy. Born a slave, he understood firsthand the power of discipline in shaping not only your actions, but your character. And let me tell you, the lessons I've taken from his teachings have completely transformed how I approach each day. Epictetus believed that discipline starts with understanding what's within your control and what isn't. When you focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, you take back your power. This was a game changer for me. I used to waste so much energy worrying about things I couldn't change, whether it was other people's opinions, external circumstances, or even the weather. But as Epictetus taught, none of that is truly in our control. What is in our control is how we show up, and discipline is the tool that ensures we show up in the best possible way. For me, this understanding shifted how I viewed mornings entirely. Instead of letting the day's unpredictability dictate my mood or motivation, I began focusing on what I could control in those early hours, getting up on time, sticking to my routine, and tackling my priorities with intention. These small acts of discipline created a ripple effect that carried through the rest of the day. I wasn't relying on fleeting feelings of motivation anymore. I was relying on habits I'd built through discipline. One thing Epictetus emphasized is the importance of starting small. He knew that grand, sweeping changes often fail because they're overwhelming. Instead, he taught that discipline is built through consistent, manageable actions. I've applied this by breaking my mornings into tiny, deliberate steps. For example, I don't think about the entire workout I need to do. I just focus on putting on my shoes. I don't stress about finishing a massive project. I commit to working on it for 10 minutes. These small steps might not seem like much, but they add up quickly, building momentum and reinforcing the habit of discipline. Epictetus also taught that discipline isn't just about action, it's about thought. How you talk to yourself matters. Negative self-talk can erode your discipline faster than anything else. I've caught myself thinking, I can't do this, or it's too hard, and every time it made quitting feel easier. But when I started replacing those thoughts with, I've done hard things before, or I only need to focus on this one step, everything changed. The mind follows where your words lead, and discipline thrives in an environment of encouragement. Another key lesson from Epictetus is the value of preparing for resistance. He was realistic. He knew life would throw obstacles in your way, whether it's physical discomfort, mental fatigue, or external distractions. Resistance is inevitable. But here's the thing. Discipline isn't about avoiding resistance. It's about knowing how to face it. I've started viewing resistance as a test, a chance to prove to myself that I'm stronger than the discomfort or the excuse. Every time I push through, I'm not just completing a task. I'm reinforcing my identity as someone who follows through. Epictetus also stressed the importance of focusing on the process, not the outcome. This was a tough one for me because I used to be so fixated on results. If I didn't see immediate progress, I'd get discouraged and give up. But the Stoics teach that discipline isn't about chasing a specific outcome. It's about committing to the process, no matter what. Now, when I wake up and start my day, I remind myself that the effort I put in is valuable in itself, regardless of the result. This shift has made it so much easier to stay consistent because I'm no longer tied to unrealistic expectations. One of the most practical ways I've built discipline is by creating non-negotiable routines. Epictetus believed that repetition is the foundation of mastery, and I've seen this play out in my own life. By establishing a morning routine that I stick to no matter what, I've eliminated the need to rely on willpower. For example, I know exactly what I'll do in the first hour of my day. Wake up at the same time, drink water, stretch, and review my priorities. It's automatic now, and that's the power of discipline. It takes the decision-making out of the equation and makes productive action the default. There's also something deeply freeing about discipline, which might sound counterintuitive. A lot of people think discipline is restrictive, that it limits your freedom. But I've found the opposite to be true. When you're disciplined, you're not at the mercy of distractions, procrastination, or fleeting desires. You have control over your time, your energy, and your actions. That kind of freedom is priceless. It's the freedom to focus on what matters most without being pulled in a million directions. One thing I've learned from Epictetus is the importance of celebrating progress, no matter how small. Discipline doesn't mean being hard on yourself or expecting perfection. It means showing up consistently, even when it's difficult, and every time you do, it's worth acknowledging. I started keeping a journal where I note one thing I did each day that required discipline. It might be something as simple as sticking to my workout, or resisting the urge to check my phone during deep work. These small wins build confidence and reinforce the belief that I'm capable of staying disciplined. Epictetus also reminds us to be patient with ourselves. Discipline is a skill, and like any skill, it takes time to develop. There were days when I fell short, when I hit snooze or skipped a task I'd planned. But instead of beating myself up, I remembered his teaching that progress is made through persistence, not perfection. The key is to keep going, to keep practicing, even when it feels like you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Ultimately, what I've taken from Epictetus is that discipline is about living in alignment with your values. It's about deciding who you want to be and taking the actions that reflect that decision. For me, that means waking up each day and choosing to act with purpose, even when it's hard. It means valuing effort over ease, growth over comfort, and long-term fulfillment over short-term gratification. Discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. And once you do, it becomes the foundation for a life that's truly worth living. Discipline lays the groundwork, but it's often tested the moment life throws a curveball. No matter how intentional or prepared you are, challenges will arise. Resistance creeps in, plans go sideways, and obstacles appear out of nowhere. These moments can feel defeating, but they don't have to be. In fact, they can become the fuel that propels you forward. This is something I've come to learn deeply, not just through Stoic philosophy, but through my own experience. Challenges, as frustrating as they seem, can be the very things that sharpen us. When I first came across the Stoic idea of reframing obstacles, it felt counterintuitive. How could something that stands in your way actually help you move forward? But the more I leaned into this perspective, the more I realized that obstacles are rarely the problem. It's how we perceive them that makes the difference. Marcus Aurelius put it perfectly. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That line became a mantra for me, a reminder that even the toughest situations hold the potential to teach me, strengthen me, or push me towards something better. Reframing a challenge starts with a choice, to see it not as a roadblock, but as a tool. Take resistance in the morning, for example. I used to wake up and immediately feel weighed down by thoughts of all the things I had to do. That feeling alone would drain my motivation before I even started. But I began asking myself a different question. What is this resistance trying to teach me? Often it was pointing to areas where I needed to grow, whether it was building more patience, finding clarity in my priorities, or simply proving to myself that I could push through. One of the most powerful shifts I've made is seeing challenges as opportunities to practice virtues like patience, courage, and resilience. When something doesn't go as planned, instead of spiraling into frustration, I ask, what's within my control right now? The Stoics teach that every obstacle is a chance to practice what we preach. It's one thing to talk about being resilient or calm under pressure. It's another to embody those qualities when life tests you. And here's the thing, the more you practice reframing, the more natural it becomes. What once felt like an insurmountable problem now feels like an opportunity to grow stronger. I'll share a personal example. There was a time when a project I'd been working on for weeks fell apart at the last minute. I was frustrated, disappointed, and honestly, a bit angry. But instead of letting those emotions control me, I stopped and reflected. What can I learn from this? How can I use this setback to improve? That shift in perspective didn't just help me recover. It motivated me to approach the project with fresh ideas and energy. The obstacle didn't disappear, but it became a stepping stone instead of a dead end. The key to reframing challenges is to stay rooted in the present. So often, our frustration with obstacles comes from worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. The Stoics remind us to focus on the here and now. What's the next best action you can take? That's all that matters. When I'm overwhelmed by a challenge, I bring my attention back to what's directly in front of me. Breaking the problem into smaller, manageable steps makes it less intimidating and helps me move forward with purpose. Another lesson I've learned is to embrace the idea of anti-fragility, a concept closely aligned with Stoicism. Anti-fragility means that challenges don't just test us, they can actually make us stronger. Think of it like muscles growing through resistance during exercise. Without challenges, we stagnate, but with them, we grow. This mindset has completely changed how I approach obstacles. Instead of avoiding discomfort, I welcome it as a chance to build my resilience and expand my capacity. I've also started seeing failure differently. Failure used to feel like the end of the road, a sign that I wasn't good enough. But the Stoics taught me that failure is just feedback. It's a signal that something needs to change or improve. Every failure carries a lesson, and every lesson is an opportunity to grow. When you approach obstacles with this mindset, failure loses its sting. It becomes part of the process, not something to fear. Another powerful tool for reframing challenges is gratitude. This might sound strange. How can you be grateful for an obstacle? But gratitude shifts your focus. Instead of fixating on what's wrong, you start to see what's still right. You start to notice the resources you have, the people who support you, and the strength you've already built. Gratitude doesn't erase the challenge, but it gives you the perspective to face it with clarity and determination. There's also something incredibly empowering about viewing obstacles as part of your story. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are, their stories are filled with challenges they overcame. That's what makes them inspiring. When I'm facing something tough, I remind myself that this moment is just one chapter in my story, and it's the chapters with the biggest obstacles that often lead to the greatest growth. One thing I've started doing is actively seeking out small challenges in my daily life. It's a way to train myself to reframe obstacles naturally, whether it's taking on a task I've been avoiding, pushing myself a little harder during a workout, or stepping out of my comfort zone in a conversation. These small challenges build my mental muscle. They prepare me for the bigger obstacles that inevitably come. What I've found most freeing about this approach is that it takes the fear out of challenges. When you see obstacles as fuel, they lose their power to paralyze you. Instead of dreading them, you start to see them as opportunities to prove to yourself what you're capable of. And let me tell you, that feeling, the confidence that comes from overcoming something you once thought was impossible, is one of the most rewarding experiences you can have. This isn't about pretending challenges aren't hard. They are. But it's about choosing to see them differently. The next time you're faced with a morning where everything feels like it's going wrong, stop and ask yourself, how can this moment make me stronger? That one question can change everything. It's not about avoiding the obstacle, it's about using it to become the person you're meant to be. Every obstacle we face can teach us something, but there's one truth that overshadows every challenge, every victory, and every moment of our lives. Our time is limited. This isn't meant to be dramatic or morbid. It's just reality. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't shy away from it. They embraced it. The practice of memento mori, remembering that we will die, isn't about fear. It's about clarity. It's about using the awareness of mortality to ignite purpose and gratitude. And let me tell you, this one shift in perspective can completely transform how you approach your mornings and your life. I'll be honest, the first time I really sat with this idea, it shook me. Thinking about your own mortality isn't easy, but here's what hit me. Knowing that life doesn't go on forever isn't a reason to despair. It's a reason to live fully. It's a reminder that every morning is a chance to do something meaningful, to connect with the people you care about, to move closer to the person you want to become. When I wake up now, the thought that today is a gift isn't just a cliché. It's real, and it changes everything. The beauty of memento mori is that it pulls you out of autopilot. How often do we let mornings slip by, caught up in routines, stress, or distractions? It's easy to think there's always tomorrow, but the truth is, there's no guarantee. The Stoics weren't being pessimistic when they reminded themselves of this. They were being practical. They knew that when you face the reality of limited time, you stop wasting it. You stop procrastinating. You stop waiting for someday. You start living with urgency and intention. For me, one of the most powerful ways to practice memento mori is to start each morning by reflecting on what matters most. Before diving into tasks or letting the day pull me in 100 directions, I take a moment to ask myself, if today were my last day, how would I want to spend it? This isn't about making every day extraordinary, it's about making every day intentional. It's about choosing to focus on the things that truly matter instead of getting lost in the noise. This practice also helps me let go of small frustrations. When you remember how short life is, the things that used to bother you, a rude comment, a minor inconvenience, a slow start to the day, suddenly feel insignificant. I've found myself asking, in the grand scheme of things, does this really matter? More often than not, the answer is no. And just like that, the frustration fades, replaced by a sense of perspective and calm. Gratitude is another powerful part of memento mori. When you start your morning with the awareness that life is finite, you begin to see the little things differently. The sound of birds outside your window, the warmth of the sun, the chance to share a laugh with someone you love. These moments take on a new depth. I've started keeping a gratitude journal, writing down 3 things I'm thankful for every morning. It might sound simple, but it's one of the most grounding and energizing habits I've ever adopted. Gratitude reminds me that no matter what challenges the day holds, there's so much to appreciate. Another lesson I've taken from memento mori is the importance of leaving nothing unsaid. If today were my last, would the people I care about know how much they mean to me? This question has pushed me to express gratitude, apologize when I've been wrong, and show love more openly. It's made my relationships richer and my mornings more meaningful. There's something powerful about starting the day with connection, whether it's a kind word, a thoughtful message, or a moment of reflection on the people who've shaped your life. Memento mori also fuels action. It's easy to delay starting something because we think there's plenty of time. But the Stoics remind us the clock is always ticking. This isn't about rushing or stressing yourself out. It's about prioritizing what truly matters. I've started looking at my to-do list differently. Instead of trying to do everything, I focus on the 1 or 2 things that align most closely with my values and goals. This clarity not only helps me make progress, but also gives me a sense of fulfillment at the end of the day. The awareness of mortality also encourages simplicity. When you realize that your time is limited, you stop cluttering your life with things that don't add value. I've let go of commitments that drained me, habits that didn't serve me, and possessions that distracted me. This isn't about minimalism for the sake of it. It's about clearing space for what truly matters. Starting the day with a sense of purpose becomes much easier when your life isn't weighed down by unnecessary distractions. There's also a certain freedom that comes with memento mori. When you accept that life is temporary, you stop fearing failure. You realize that the opinions of others, the risks you take, and even the mistakes you make are all part of the fleeting experience of being alive. This perspective has given me the courage to try things I might have avoided before. It's not about recklessness. It's about understanding that the real failure is not living fully. One of the most surprising benefits of practicing memento mori is the sense of peace it brings. You might think that reflecting on mortality would create anxiety, but for me, it's done the opposite. It's reminded me that no matter what happens, I have today. I have this moment, and that's enough. This mindset has helped me approach my mornings and my life with a sense of calm and focus. The Stoics didn't reflect on death to dwell on it. They did it to live better. They understood that when you accept the reality of mortality, you start to see each day as a gift, not a given. And when you approach your mornings with this mindset, you'll find a renewed sense of energy, purpose, and gratitude. Every day becomes an opportunity to live fully, love deeply, and leave nothing undone. That's the power of memento mori, and it starts the moment you open your eyes. Let's bring it all together. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this, it's that waking up motivated isn't about waiting for some magical burst of energy. It's about creating it. Through purpose, discipline, reframing obstacles, and remembering the fleeting nature of life, the Stoics have shown us that every morning is a chance to take control of our lives. These teachings aren't just ancient philosophy. They're tools you can use right now to build a stronger, more intentional version of yourself. The truth is, no one else can do this work for you. You have to choose it. You have to wake up each day and decide that your goals, your values, and your growth matter more than the pull of comfort or the weight of excuses. I'm not saying it's easy. I've struggled with this myself, but I can promise you it's worth it. Every small step you take to own your mornings will ripple through the rest of your life. Now, here's where I turn it over to you. What part of this resonated with you the most? Was it the discipline of Epictetus, the purposeful reflections of Marcus Aurelius, or the profound energy of memento mori? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear how you're planning to apply these teachings to your own mornings. And if you found value in this, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button and join this journey. Together, we can keep learning, growing, and finding new ways to live with purpose every single day. You've got this. Let's make tomorrow count.